Is your steering sloppy? Is it this sloppy? Maybe it is, or maybe it isn't, or maybe it's somewhere in between. Either way, in this video, I'm going to help you diagnose the steering on your Ford, Chev, Dodge, Toyota, whatever it may be, and potentially save you $10 or $100 or $1,000 or somewhere around there, or maybe you're just going to learn something new if you are going to buy a truck with a solid axle, or you're just bored. Either way, let's dig right into this and see what I can teach you. For the next step, you're going to need an assistant. I've got my lovely assistant Ashley here, but if you don't have a girlfriend, you can ask your grandma, your best friend, or your dad, or whoever, but you're going to need someone to work the wheel here. And what you're going to have them do is lightly rotate the wheel from left to right, just stopping just when it gets a little bit of a resistance. So just a little bit, and a little bit faster than that. Yeah, about there. So now, while they're doing that, you're going to go underneath the vehicle and see. You're going to want to come underneath the vehicle and see what you can find. And I like to start right at the steering box. And of course, this truck, something blatantly obvious. And I got this truck like this, and it's pretty dangerous to see. It looks like the nut backed out on the drag link here. So I'm going to fix that, and we're going to go into a little bit further diagnostic if your steering isn't as sloppy and obvious as this. Okay, so I've got the drag link tightened up, and it significantly improved the steering. However, there's still many components to look at. So I like to start right at the source of a lot of the play is the steering box here. So I've got my girlfriend wiggling the steering wheel right now, and right at the top here you can see that the actual shaft that comes out of the bottom of the steering box is moving left to right. So I'm going to show you how to tighten up the steering box later in the video here, but it also looks like it has to do a seal on this steering box as well. So that's one thing to look at, is you're going to look at the steering box. Next up, you're going to look at the pitman arm. So you can see just faintly that washer is moving and the pitman arm is moving. So that means the pitman arm isn't snug on there, so that nut needs to be tightened up. Then of course we'll go and look at the drag link here. You see there's just a little bit of play where the nut will wobble in the hole, or the pitman arm will wobble in the hole, likely due to it being loose for so long it reamed the hole out. Next, you move down the line. Got the drag link to tie rod bar here. So you got this one right here. Got no movement there. Then you're going to look at your tie rod ends. Same thing. Watch to see if there's any play where it goes up and down or in and out. This is tight. Over to the other side, same thing. Look for any play. Lastly, you want to look at the track bar, which is the lateral bar that runs from the frame to the axle. And we can see in the frame side, these are notorious for being bad. Pivot a little bit harder, hon. So you can see the ball on this is sacked out. So it's not the fastener that's loose. It's not the fastener that's loose, but it's rather the ball of the tie rod. It's moving in and out. So this thing needs a track bar. You go look at the other end where the bushing goes to the axle. No play there. No play there. So to look at this whole steering system in a outward view, it's going to need a steering box. It's going to need a track bar. It's going to need a drag link end, and it might need a pitman arm. However, the tie rod ends look both good, and the other end of the drag link looks fine as well. And then you can also, while you're underneath here, lift up on the truck. And if it seems really loose, you can look at the shocks, because the shocks can cause a little bit of steering play feeling as well. And you're going to want to look at your sway bar end links as well too while you're underneath here. So this one's a little harder to film, so bear with me here. But down below here, we've got the steering shaft. You can kind of just see it rotating right there. Now this one's got a series of U-joints as well as a coupler in between there, and then where it links to the firewall. And down by the steering box, you can see the second joint. Now this is the same thing as checking the rest of the steering, just you want to look for excessive play in it. Apologies, is a hard spot to get at. So it appears that the U-joints are all pretty good in the steering shaft, and there isn't some excessive play. However, there's one spot that you won't really notice just turning it here. And you actually have to go and physically wiggle the steering shaft. A commonly overlooked part of the steering is where the steering shaft goes into the steering column. And see, as I wiggle it here, some play. And I'll go into how to fix that later. When I work on my trucks, I like to put them on jack stands. So the axle is supported by 2 jack stands on either side, and the truck is bearing the weight. Now I've got one wheel blown off, but before I blow this other one off here, I'm going to tell you how to quickly inspect your ball joint. So you're going to want to pick the wheel up and down. I can't really show. This one's tight, so you'll go up and down. If your ball joints are worn out, your wheel will move up and down, and then you're going to go in and out with it. Now, if your upper ball joint's worn out, this will move in and out. So we're pretty good. You just shake it, and you should feel something. If your tie rod ends are worn out, you'll be able to grab the front and go in and out like that. So ball joints are good in this truck, so of course I've got no movement. So the steering box that was in the truck ended up having a bent sector shaft, so I had to get another one. I put a reseal kit in this one, but it's quite the process, so I'm not going to cover it in this video, as it's kind of meant to be just a general front end video. However, most steering boxes are kind of built the same, and in the case of this Saginaw steering box from the Dodge, it has the sector shaft adjustment here using a 3/16 Allen key, and then I have a pair of vice grips on the spline on the top here. You turn this in or out to adjust the tightness or the play between here and the output there. I'll pick that up in a second. Okay, this is kind of tough to show. I'm going to do my best to show it. Just to make things easy, I'm going to turn this thing all the way in. It stops there, and it's going to have tons of play. So I'm just moving this just that much, like any more, and I can kind of feel some resistance. So you can just make out the shaft play here. So I'm wiggling like that, and this, I'm going to turn this out. You know, you're going to want to go like half a turn at a time, quarter turn, but it was way out, of course. And then I'm still going to move it here. So you can move, it moves a little bit. So what you'll do is you'll just progressively turn this out a little bit. Turn there. You'll wiggle the input shaft and just kind of go until it's pretty much, you move one shaft and the other one moves. So I'm just adjusting it out here. You can see as you move the adjuster in and out, it changes. So you play with it a little bit, you kind of find the sweet spot there. And then you just tighten up the lock washer and you're good to go. Okay, I've changed the steering box, pitman arm, and the steering stabilizer and the track bar on the truck here, and I'm going to do a alignment on it. At least the best garage alignment that you can do. Solid axle trucks are pretty simple, and everyone kind of has a little different method for doing these. My method involves these 2 angles and a dually lug nut, and then you put it nice and flush on the rotor surface. If your rotor isn't like flush on the wheel, you can put another lug nut to hold the rotor flat. Next up is the toe in or toe out. I like to set these trucks at 0 toe, if not just like an 1/8 in. So I've got 2 tape measures running to the opposite side, which are hooked on to the level on the other over there. And for toe, you're going to want to look at the difference between the front and the rear. So we've got 74. Let's just say, to make it simple, 74 in the front. In the back here, we've got about 74 1/4, a little bit more than that. So that gives us a 1/4 inch toe in, which is about where most people like to set their vehicles. However, I will adjust this and make it 0 toe, which means I have to loosen off the bolts here, and I'm going to want to make this longer, which will mean I will be pushing up on the crescent wrench, and that will thread this out and make them longer. And then so I'll go a couple turns, and then that will bring the toe out. So after I do that, then I through turning the steering wheel left and right, I look down the edge of this and I try to line it up with a tread on the back tire. So this one's about lined up with the center, kind of the left center line. And we'll go to the other side, verify that it's about the same, and it is. So I'll take a little bit of finagling left and right to get that looking good, and then you'll come up and you'll look at your steering wheel, and it's I marked the center of the dash and the center of the steering wheel, and we're off a little bit here, so we're looking pretty good. So I will take the drag link, and so what are we here? A little left of center. So we need to turn the steering wheel to the right in order to have the wheels pointing straight and the steering wheel pointing straight. So I have my little handy dandy cheat sheet here. So by taking a pipe wrench to the drag link adjuster right there, by pushing it up, it makes the drag link longer, it pushes it out, and that will turn the steering wheel to the left. And then by taking the pipe wrench, turning it down, it will thread the drag link and drag link rod in, which will turn the steering wheel to the right. We're both there, then let's go check the steering wheel. We're both a little bit off still. So play with it till you get it pretty close, and it's not the be-all end-all. So you just kind of imagine some of you, they're starting with your steering wheel like right here. You're going to get it kind of ballpark, and then after it's pretty close to center, you're going to want to go and drive the truck down a nice straight road, and the steering will kind of find center for where the truck tracks. Go underneath with your pipe wrench and adjust the drag link, and then that's the way I found to get the steering wheel pretty well bang on. After I do that, the last thing you can adjust on a solid axle truck is the Castor. Now the Castor adjustment on this truck is this heavily seized in lower bolt. For most of these Dodge trucks on stock control arms, I just leave it. It works, it's been fine, and it really doesn't move a whole lot. However, if you do a level and you haven't adjusted your Castor and your steering feels really loose and kind of floaty, you're going to want to adjust your Castor. As Castor is kind of like how a shopping, or actually, here's a perfect example. Castor is the angle between the pivot and here, so it's kind of what makes the wheel want to track nicely. If this wheel was centered on the pivot point, it'll kind of like want to wobble everywhere, and it'll feel really light. So this has got, of course, an extreme amount of Castor. So the cam bolt here for Castor adjustment is going to be, for most stock height trucks, is going to want to be pointing straight up. You can kind of see there's a faint line of it there and there. Unfortunately for Rust Belt trucks and Canadian trucks, these are usually pretty seized inside the control arm, but you can try and adjust them, so I'm going to leave it. If you level your truck, then that will affect your Castor and make it more negative. So what you can try is loosen this off, and then on the inside, turn the bolt so this cam adjuster is another degree forwards. Typically, you want more positive Castor. You don't want negative Castor, so you'll turn to the left and adjust it a couple cogs, see what feels best. A little bit of trial and error. You can also adjust this side a little bit more than the other side to make it want to kind of steer more towards the crown of the road. I just set them both the same, just so I know it's totally straight. But I'm not going to be doing Castor on this truck as it is stock height, and I know for sure that's going to be putting up a fight. This with the new front end in the truck. Driving pretty nice. There's some light corrections here and there, but feels super tight too. Good resistance, not too sloppy. Got to adjust it a little bit, but otherwise pretty good. I hope that by watching this video I was able to help you diagnose the front end on your truck and keep you from getting carpal tunnel from trying to keep it in the lanes, or at least make it feel like it's connected to the vehicle still. If you have any other methods or things I might have missed, please drop a comment and let me know. I'm always curious to learn some new ways to diagnose, or maybe even some horror stories of bad front end or death wobble battles that you've had. If you enjoyed this type of content or other diesel related how-to videos and cool builds, please consider checking my channel out and subscribing if you're not already subscribed. Thank you for watching the full video, and I hope to see you in another one.